Well, I have not been following on this channel the ongoing saga over the dispute between Ukraine and Russia regarding the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant, which, if you remember, very, very early on in the war, there appeared to be, there were accusations, oh my gosh, the Russians are bombing Zaporozhye, they're going to trigger a nuclear meltdown, and all this stuff, and oh my gosh, they're shooting at it, and then we saw from different camera angles that actually the battle was going on at an office building that was not, tied to the reactors and things like that, and they were very far away from it, looking at it on Google Maps, and the whole narrative unraveled in real time in a matter of a couple hours. And I don't even know if I covered it on this channel, it unraveled so quickly. I was watching it live at nighttime. I was watching Steve Lookner, and then, he was browsing all the stuff on Twitter and things and the different streams, and then I was looking at it on Google Maps trying to figure out where they were fighting versus where the power plant was. And suffice it to say, the Ruskies were not endangering a nuclear meltdown with what they were doing. They were capturing the administrative building on the site. Now, had the Ruskies actually been, firing missiles at the nuclear power plant itself, that would have been very, very bad. And that would have been worthy of condemnation, to say the least. But now, Volodymyr Zelensky, actually, you know what? Before I get to Zelensky's latest statement, over the past few weeks, we've been told that the Ruskies, despite occupying the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant and the fact that Zaporozhye is powering much of Russian-occupied Ukraine, it is well within the now Russian-controlled territory. It's behind, it's behind enemy lines as far as the Ukrainians are concerned. Yet we're told that the Ruskies have been shelling their own position, shelling their own power station, risking a nuclear meltdown. Now, this just didn't pass the smell test to me, but of course it was all he said, she said, so I didn't talk about it. To me, it seemed pretty obvious, why would the Ruskies be shelling their own position? What kind of 4D chess is this? What, they're going to bomb their own a nuclear power station in within territory that they control, which is powering, the electric grid for, I guess, I don't know what the Russians are going to call it yet, whether they're going to call it Novorossiya or Russian Ukraine or whatever, but this new part of Ukraine that Russia has carved out for themselves, why would they destroy their own power plant and trigger a nuclear meltdown that could, create billions of dollars in damages and give, however many people cancer or kill them instantly from the nuclear fallout? It just didn't add up to me. It sounded to me like the Ukrainians were bombing this power plant because it would hurt the Russians if this power plant went down, but they didn't want to admit that they were bombing a nuclear power plant, and so they were just half-heartedly trying to blame the Ruskies. But of course, all of pro-Ukraine Twitter, all of the Ukrainian trolls who call themselves American liberals, and within the EU, the people who I think they call themselves neoliberals over there. I think that term is not quite it's not quite the pejorative that it is here. But either way, Western liberals, the world abound, were telling us, they were completely sure of themselves that this was the doing of the Ruskies, that Putin was bombing this nuclear power plant, that it was 4D chess, and that we just can't understand the complexity and the level of evil that is present in the mind of one Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin. And then today, or yesterday, because time zone differences, lo and behold, Zelensky himself, the supreme ruler of Ukraine, who is not quite so supreme since, he does have to answer to his puppet masters, he proclaimed that Ukraine is now going to start shelling the Russian position in Zaporozhye and is going to try and drive the Ruskies out. Now, I think what the case that Zelensky's trying to make is that the Ruskies are using the power plant as a shield, and they are launching attacks from this power plant, assuming that the Ukrainians will not fire back. I don't know if that's true. If that is the case, that would be very bad of the Russians. That would not be good, being good sports. That would be dangerous because, you know, you are then drawing attacks to the power plant, just like when you put artillery pieces deep into residential areas, maybe in the courtyards of apartment complexes, like the Ukrainians have been accused of doing in the past, or what quite regularly, you know, Hamas is notorious for doing. I don't know how much that is really fair with Hamas, because the Palestinians are grouped like cattle into these very, very tightly packed areas. So I don't know how possible it is for Hamas to launch attacks from sparsely populated areas. I don't know if there are any sparsely populated areas in Gaza. I've never been there. But whether there is or not, that is, you know, it's a tactic that they're known for. And so that should give you an impression of what the Ruskies are being accused of here. They're being accused of using the nuclear power plant as a shield, and Zelensky, at least, is saying, you know, no, we're not going to let you do that anymore. We are going to shell your positions, and if we hit the power plant, so be it. I can't do a perfect Zelensky voice, unfortunately, but in fact, I do a very poor Zelensky voice. But don't mind me, you get the point. I will try to link to the Guardian. I don't even know if you call it an article. It's a post on their website, and they have the clip of Zelensky saying this, and then they have a very, very short, like, paragraph writing this up. I mean, it's really just one big caption. But yeah, Ukraine now is saying that they're very much willing to shell this power plant in an effort to take on the Ruskies. Now, again, if what they're saying is true, that there are Ruskies launching attacks from within the power plant, I mean, would that be, you know, does that make the Russians look good? No, it makes them look bad. But considering that we've been hearing lies for weeks about how it was the Russians themselves who were shelling this plant, I don't tend to believe, if the Ukrainians were lying then, and of course, you know, lying this whole time, why would I expect them to be telling the truth now? I can only assume that the Ruskies probably are not launching attacks from within the power plant. But again, it's possible. I'm not going to put it, I'm not going to say it's beneath them. I mean, this is a war. So in war, you know, you kill people to advance your political interests. I don't think that anything is beneath someone who is engaged in warfare. So hopefully we don't have to deal with any nuclear fallout. Hopefully we don't have Chernobyl 2.0. You know, especially because the folks in Ukraine on either side, you know, you're in a war zone. It's not comfortable. Resources are scarce. Transportation is suboptimal. You know, you're not getting the kind of goods that you're used to, at least if this nuclear power plant stays up and running. Folks have some electricity. They have some power. They can, you know, turn the lights on when it gets dark in the evening. I really hope they don't knock this power plant out, even putting aside the health risks, which, you know, to be honest, I know that nuclear plants are incredibly safe, you know, generally speaking, but they do still have these risks. I mean, this wouldn't be happening if it was a coal-fired power plant. Then again, if it was a coal-fired power plant, the Ukrainians would have just blown it to smithereens with no consideration and knocked out the power for these folks. But still, you know, I don't understand this hatred of coal and fascination and fetishization, really, of nuclear energy. Coal works just fine. You know, there's a lot of it in the world. It's cheap, and it's non-volatile. You can take a lump of coal, as long as you don't, you know, crush it into dust and breathe it down your lungs, just like any dust. You don't want to get it in your lungs. But as long as you don't do that, it's totally safe. But then again, you know, who would have expected that in this part of Ukraine, which when this power plant was built, this is deep within the Soviet Union, well beyond, you know, the Elbe River. Who would ever thought that there would be conventional warfare taking place in this area? Now, just a general update on the war. My prognosis I guess you could call it, or my outlook for the war has not changed. Things are not going Zelensky's way. The Ukrainians will not be able to hold out forever. They just, they're slowly, losing ground. There was that incident where they were able to blow up some Russian resources in Crimea, military assets. That I have seen no evidence that that's going to have a major impact on the outcome of the war. It's not like this was some big significant loss for Russia. I guess you could say it's embarrassing for them, but that's about it. I think that the propaganda video that the Ukrainians, Jackson Hinkle covered this earlier in the week, that the propaganda video that they put out about this strike, if you want to call it that, although it's not clear that this was an airstrike, it seems more like that this was an internal sabotage thing in Crimea, was creepy and deranged and does not paint their side in a very good light. I mean, they were gleefully, playing happy music to a video where, there's a giant explosion in the background and these tourists who are on the beach, run screaming, fearing for their lives, and they find that funny. It's like they're happy to be terrorizing civilians in a war. That's not normally something that civilized countries flaunt. And so as far as my sympathies for Ukraine, those are still gone. They're not coming back. The Ukrainians are doing nothing to redeem themselves morally in my eyes. I really don't care if they lose. I didn't have a high opinion of the Ruskies going into this. I mean, I still don't. My opinion of them is pretty much unchanged. They are who they are. But the Ukrainians have proved to be, at least the people in charge in Ukraine. I don't want to paint like their entire population with this light. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the people who run that regime. When I say the Ukrainians or the Russians, I'm talking about the regime in power. They're not good people. It's plain and simple. They've made that abundantly clear. And so I don't cry when bad people lose power, even if they lose power to other bad people. Now, in some cases, you can go from bad to worse, like when Batista was overthrown by Castro. That's a sad day. I don't cry for Batista, though. I don't think this is that kind of situation, though. I don't think going from whatever you want to call the current Ukrainian regime, whatever it's turned into, going from them to Putin kind of seems like an upgrade, I'm not going to lie. Putin's much more stable and predictable. I feel like if you just stayed within whatever the boundaries that the state set, you're not going to be, you're not going to be Mr. Super Freedom or anything like that, but you could survive in that regime. The Ukrainian regime seems much more chaotic to me. I mean, they're happy about terrorizing tourists. That's just not rational. They're openly bombing a nuclear power plant. The president of Ukraine came out and is saying that now. They're going to target that. And he's saying, well, that's Russia's problem. When it was the other way around, and the Ukrainians held this territory, and it was the Russians attacking, and we thought that the Russians might be bombing this nuclear power plant, the condemnation of Russia was universal. And, I was in agreement with that, pending, uncovering the truth. When I first was watching that, I was going, wow, if they're actually, directly attacking the nuclear power plant, that is obscene and incredibly reckless. But then it turned out they weren't doing that. And then I thought, oh, okay, well, this is just normal warfare. But considering what Zelensky said, I don't see how I can avoid condemning him. So, with that said, I will see you folks back here tomorrow.